You know, in any business, some functions just kind of hum along in the background, quietly doing their job. For decades, corporate purchasing was definitely one of them, often seen as just a simple clerical task. But that view has changed. And I mean, it has changed dramatically. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how this once overlooked process has become a powerful, strategic weapon for today's top companies. So let me ask you, when you hear the term corporate purchasing, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, you probably picture stacks of paperwork, order forms, maybe someone just trying to find the cheapest price for pens and paper. And you know what? For a very long time, that perception was pretty much spot on. For decades, the entire function was viewed exactly like this quote says, as a simple clerical activity. It was purely administrative, a back office task. Main goal, it was transactional. Process the paperwork, make sure the stuff shows up. That was pretty much it. But that view is now completely, fundamentally outdated. In today's hyper-competitive world, a well-managed purchasing process is an absolute powerhouse. It directly impacts your bottom line, your operational efficiency, and even your company's ability to innovate. Honestly, executing this process with care and a strategic mindset is what separates the leaders from the laggards. So, let's break down exactly how it works.
All right, the whole journey kicks off with two foundational steps. This is where a need is first recognized and then defined with crystal clarity. Getting this initial stage right is absolutely critical because, trust me, any mistakes made here will just get bigger and more expensive later on.
So as you can see, the process gets going with step 1, the recognition of a need. And that flows directly into step 2, the specification of that need. This is really the, hey, what do we need and what exactly should it be phase of our journey.
The official trigger for this whole process is a document called a Purchase Requisition. Now, this isn't just some casual email or a sticky note. As the definition on the slide points out, it is a formal authorization. Think of it like an internal control, the official green light that tells the purchasing department, okay, this is a legitimate, approved need. You have our permission to go and buy it. To make this all feel a bit more real, let's actually follow a single purchase from beginning to end. Picture a project manager at a big construction company. Her team is opening a brand new site in 3 months, and they're going to need 500 high-visibility safety vests. She doesn't just pick up the phone. She goes into her company's system and fills out a formal electronic purchase requisition. The need is now official. So once that need is approved, it has to be specified. And as you can see here, there are a few common ways to do this. You could specify by brand, which is like saying, I need an iPhone. You could describe what you need the product to do, which is specifying by performance. Or for something really custom, you might provide detailed engineering drawings or blueprints.
So let's get back to our safety vests. The buyer gets together with the project manager and a safety officer. Now, instead of just naming a brand, they create a performance specification, just like you see on the slide. It has to be fluorescent orange, it must meet specific CSA safety standards for its reflective stripes, and it's got to be made of a durable material. Now, the key strategic advantage here, and this is really important, is that this approach opens the door to competition. Any supplier who can meet these performance criteria can now bid on the business.
Okay, with a crystal clear specification in hand, we can move into the next phase of the process. This is all about sourcing. It's about finding potential suppliers, evaluating them carefully, and then making the deal official with the right partner.
So, the next 2 steps in our process, as you see here, are supplier selection and purchase order placement. This is the sourcing stage, and it's where a buyer's strategic thinking really starts to shine.
Now, a really common mistake is to think that supplier selection is all about finding the lowest price, but strategic purchasing is focused on total value. Just look at the comparison on this slide. On the left, you have a pure price focus, but on the right, a value focus considers so much more: quality, delivery performance, the supplier's financial stability, their technical know-how. Because let's be honest, the lowest price from a supplier who can't deliver on time isn't a bargain, it's a crisis waiting to happen. Okay, back to our story. The buyer sends out a request for quotation, or an RFQ as it's called, to 5 qualified suppliers. When those quotes come back, she analyzes them not just on the price per vest, but also on their proposed delivery time and the warranty they offer. She ends up selecting the supplier who offers the best overall package, the best total value. So, once a supplier is selected, the deal has to be made official. This is done with a document called a purchase order, or a PO. And as the definition here explains, this isn't just another internal form. It's the company's formal authorization given to an outside supplier. And here's the key. Once that supplier accepts it, it becomes a legally binding contract. So for our example, the buyer issues a PO for those 500 vests at the agreed-upon price of $15.75 each, with a hard delivery date of November 10th. The supplier formally accepts the order, and just like that, a binding contract is now in place.
But here's the thing, the job isn't done just because the order's placed. Not even close. This next phase is all about proactive management, making sure that the supplier delivers exactly what they promised, when they promised.
So these next two steps are order follow-up and then receipt and inspection. This is where the process moves from the digital world of contracts and emails to the physical world of logistics, cardboard boxes, and quality control.
You see, a good buyer doesn't just sit back and wait for the delivery date to roll around. Our buyer, knowing these vests are critical for the new site opening, proactively calls the supplier 2 weeks beforehand. She confirms the production is on schedule and gets a tracking number for the shipment. This simple follow-up prevents any nasty last-minute surprises.
And then the day comes. The vests arrive on site. Now, the site administrator doesn't just sign for them and walk away. He counts the boxes to make sure there are 500, opens a few to spot check for quality, and then he creates what's called a goods receipt in the company's computer system. This is the official record that the items have been physically received, and it's a critical piece of the puzzle for what comes next, payment.
We're now at the final stage of the cycle. This is where we take care of the financial side of the transaction and, just as importantly, where we gather all the data to help us manage that supplier relationship going forward.
Our final two steps, as you can see here, are invoice verification and payment, followed by records and relationship management. These steps make sure our supplier gets paid correctly and on time, and critically, that we learn from every single one of these transactions to make better decisions in the future.
Okay, so after delivery, the supplier sends their bill, their invoice.
But before paying, the accounts payable department performs a really important control step called the three-way match. As this table shows so clearly, they compare the original purchase order, the goods receipt from the job site, and the supplier's invoice. The item, the quantity, and the price must match perfectly across all three documents. And since they do in our example, that invoice is approved for payment.
So, as we wrap up, let's just step back from the individual steps and look at the strategic thinking behind it all. As this table shows, this isn't just about following a checklist. It's about asking the right questions at the right time. A purchasing analyst is always thinking, does our specification allow for fair competition? Are we evaluating the total cost of this, not just the ticket price? And do all three of our documents match perfectly before we pay that bill? This analytical mindset is what turns purchasing from a simple task into a source of real business value.
You know, when you really think about it, every single purchase a company makes, whether it's for safety vests or for multi-million-dollar machinery, tells a story. It reveals how that company manages its money, how it manages risk, and how it manages its relationships. The question I want to leave you with is this: what story will your purchasing decisions tell about your company's strategy?